Hello there, heart-led humans, heart-led leaders, healers. We are about to go live, me and a very special woman named Krysta Kinslow. We're going to talk somatics, shadow work. We're going to look at the different ways that are triggers and the pain that shows up for us. Okay, talking about how to move from pain to power. So, Krysta will be jumping on here in just a moment. I'm so excited to have her with us. Oh, and Christiana's here watching. Great. This is going to be right up your alley, too. So, welcome, Krysta. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can. Yes, you look lovely.
Oh, back at you. It's so good to see you. As always, I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, wonderful. I was just sharing a little bit with our audience about what we're going to chat about today. But maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the very interesting work that you do.
Yeah, I have been coming to terms, as you know, with a little bit more of the language of it. I've been getting more of a feeling into it as I've been working with clients, and it feels like very powerful energy work and embodiment. So a lot of it is going to be understanding your energetic field and what's in your energetic field, how life is showing up for you, and utilizing that to be able to move forward in a really powerful way. So that includes a lot of shadow work, like you mentioned, right as I was hopping on, a lot of embodiment of your higher self, and just really understanding the way that the world shows up around you and the way that your energy is moving through it.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I've gotten a chance to work with you, which has been so transformational and amazing. And I've been recommending you to so many of my friends. And I know originally that you were kind of under the nomenclature of like relationship, but it was ultimately
Mm-hmm.
like your relationships are a mirror of your relationships with yourself. So it was really more self-mastery kind of work than it was like how to problem solve the stuff going on with your partner. Like that's part of it, but the depth to which you offer this is just so tremendous. And saying that you're a relationship coach like didn't even scratch the surface totally, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And I know this from
I
personal
love that.
experience.
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. I know that I was starting to kind of get into the niche world, and so relationships just made sense to me because I love them. And the more, as you know, that I started talking about relationships, it was like, oh my gosh, relationships are a resource. They're a tool. There's something that you can use to kind of hit that deeper level, like you were saying. And that felt so surface because relationships are like this wonderful, beautiful byproduct that happens when you get in touch with your actual energy. And yeah, so I'm just kind of pivoting a little bit and heading towards that mastering of your energy, and it just feels so good. And yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, can you give us like some examples for people maybe who aren't familiar with this type of work about how, say, in a relationship your partner is a reflection of you? Because I think a lot of times we get fixated on the things outside of ourselves and we don't necessarily see how it's related to how we're showing up and how we're being. Could you give us like kind of an example, an illustration of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to kind of think of one offhand, but the way that I kind of look at it is that a lot of the time our, say, like our partners or our family members or the people around us, however you want to look at it, they are like windows into a deeper level of your consciousness. So if, say, your partner is showing up and for some reason you're getting angry with them, or they're not doing what they need to be doing, or they could be doing better in some way, and you're like fixated on that, then it takes the focus off of you, and now you're focused on changing this person. Now you're focused on getting them to see what they need to be doing differently, and getting them focused on, or getting focused on the way that they're lacking in some way, and your energy follows that, because now your energy is going to see everything that's going wrong, and it's going to always see how they're not holding up their end of what they need to be doing and how they could be doing better. And it's really showing you, if you were to kind of take a step back and bring it back to you, it's kind of one of my favorite things, is always bring it back to you, and what's going on within you that's making you feel like a judgment against them. Are you judging yourself for not being where you think you need to be? Are you judging yourself for I mean, judging yourself can be one part of it, or it could be something as, simple as I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not getting my own needs met. I'm not speaking my truth. It could be any number of things that are happening that is causing this dynamic and causing you to pull this energy from this other person. So instead of focusing on them, when you focus on yourself, things get highlighted and illuminated that then you can work and you can love on and resolve and work through and release. And then you automatically shift the relationship dynamic and pull a new energy from that person because now you're showing up differently and now you're taking care of yourself in a different way.
Right. Yeah. If you can, I mean,
Yeah.
what you just said in the beginning about you're putting your energy out on them, and that's
Mm-hmm.
draining to you, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
I felt that
absolutely.
because, like, what you described, I mean, I think we've all been there. We've been upset at someone, whether it's our, our lover or our father or our, friend who's
Mm-hmm.
just not, you know, showing up and behaving in the world like you think they should, or like they can. They're having
Yeah.
some kind of problem, and then your energy goes to trying to fix that or trying to solve that for them in various
Mm-hmm.
ways, whether that's getting like triggered and upset and angry, or whether it's like just worrying about them all the time, right? And
Mm-hmm.
having a lot of energy leaving you that's going on them. And
Yeah.
something that blew my mind, and I feel like this is kind of what you're talking about, like to be on the receiving end of that, to be the other person in this scenario where someone's like, angry at you or concerned or upset in some way, and you're on the receiving end of this energy, it really can
Mm-hmm.
feel like a psychic attack. Like, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And of course, people are responding defensively. Of course, people are putting up boundaries and barriers. And then, you on the other side, like trying to fix this, trying to do something to make this better, might feel like, you know, a sense of frustration or rejection from
Mm-hmm.
that person, because you're not
Yeah.
really fully in touch with how it's affecting, the dynamic, like draining you, and then they're feeling this like overload, right?
Which is kind of crazy too, because when you look at it from that perspective, it's still the same thing. If it has nothing to do with how the other person is treating you and why they're coming at you in that way, but if you get triggered by that and there's
Mm-hmm.
something that's happening within you, then that's the same thing of, oh, there's something I need to look at within myself. Maybe my boundaries are not very strong. Maybe, I'm letting myself be energetically available for something that I don't want to be. And this is getting my attention on that. Maybe there's something else in my energetic field. And so it's so cool because it's like an energy leak, like you said, and it plays on both sides. There's a dynamic that's in place, which is kind of why I never say that there's toxic people, because there's toxic dynamics. There's a dynamic that's in place happening between both parties that are receiving and giving whatever's going on within that energetic field. And so if you consider someone to be toxic, there's also a role that you're playing within that toxic dynamic. And so it's so fascinating how they play off of each other. And relationships are everywhere, which is why I wanted to go into relationships to some degree, but there's a relationship with people, there's a relationship with your money, with your business, with where you're living. And I mean, it's just so complex and they're all showing you what's going on within you at any given time. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, and I feel like the way, and I've experienced it personally with you, the way that you go about this is so artful, and it's so precise and so sensitive. Like, I could totally imagine you like working like magic within even like groups, like corporate dynamics. You know what I
I
mean? Like,
thought
you can
about
like
that.
work with like, eventually someday, maybe right now the
Yeah.
one-to-one is like really where you serve best. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like you just said, there are relationship dynamics that are going on all the time, and the kind of
Mm-hmm.
non-judgmental space that you hold and the way that you invite people into their higher selves, for them to like actually take a moment, in this higher self place where you're kind of looking down at all your lower energies and the frustrations and the ways that you're showing up as messy and broken and human, right? And you invite us to look down with such compassion. Like, this is really amazing, and there's a lot of healing that I could see going on in those relationship dynamics that you just talked about. So I don't know if you've ever done more than like couples work or anything, but it
It's
might be a little
so,
much.
yeah. It's so interesting because I've actually I've worked with couples, I've worked with just single humans, and I haven't actually switched into the corporate or the group dynamic yet. And it's so interesting because I can feel how powerful that would be. And there's also this little part of me that's just like, ah, but I love the one-on-one container so much. It's so magical and so sacred. And, even the time that we've spent together in that one-on-one container, it completely fuels my soul. So I might go there at some point if that lights me up. And in the meantime, yeah, that one-on-one or that one-on-one dynamic is just so powerful and like sacred. Sacred is the best word I feel like I can describe for it because it's such a magical transformational process that you can sit with. And I read something in the book that you recommended to me the other day, the Gene Keys. Oh my gosh, I am devouring it. It is so good. And essentially, what I feel like those one-on-one containers offer is not that people need help, but that they need to feel loved and cared for and seen. And I think that it gives such a beautiful place for that to happen. And yeah, so also thank you for recommending that book. That book
Yeah.
is huge.
Yeah. I've really, it's taken me years really to get through that piece. I know maybe that's just how my life is structured at this time, so I've read most of it, but I still haven't really gone through each one of them and read all of the things fully because there's just so much to take in. But
A lot.
but yeah, you can see why I thought of you, because he talks about these layers of consciousness and how they're all interrelated, and they're not really a hierarchy, even though
Mm-hmm.
we tend to think of them like that. They're really in a way kind of more circular than that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're interacting with each other all the time, and they like coexist at the same time.
Yeah.
Don't have one without the other.
Yeah, just like,
So
our shadows and the parts of ourselves that we don't like, that we repress, that we push away a lot of the time, like, um, you know, jealousy or insecurity or judgment or, being self-absorbed, whatever those things might be, they're actually, I like to think of them now as kind of like your superpowers in disguise. So, because you are experiencing some version of that shadow dynamic, I think he kind of describes it as like a seed. There's like a seed, which leads to then, a flower coming out, which is kind of the gift that it actually shows you. If you were to lean into it and see what is happening, there's always a gift that's happening underneath the surface of it. So that's why we need to lean into these shadows and these uncomfortable parts of ourselves, and, the parts that are getting mirrored back from our relationships that suck and that feel really uncomfortable and painful. There's always some sort of gift or a flower that's coming from that, that's actually up leveling you in some way, that's letting you be a more expansive creator, that's basically saying, hey, you've got this thing in the way. What if you moved it? What would happen then? And then all of a sudden there's this, fruit that comes from the flower. And that's like the top tier. I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it city
seedy,
or
like a yeah,
seedy? Yeah, I've always wondered that. I feel like you would have known that. Yeah, your seedy, your fruit, the thing that comes when even transcend that gift part of it. There's another layer to it. So you're always going deeper. There's always something that you could be learning about yourself. We're never regressing. We're never falling behind. We're never falling back into old patterns. There's layers that are coming up that are allowing you to get bigger and bigger and up leveling more and more. And it's just so fascinating to me.
yeah, and that mindset shift, like you just said, from thinking about regression versus
Mhm.
like a review, which just has way less loaded energy in it, right?
Yeah.
It's I'm not
All about the
regressing.
less
I'm just
energy work.
I'm just reviewing what has already
Yeah.
happened and what I've already been through. And when we review things, we learn. Isn't that how it goes at the end of a textbook chapter? They give you the little
Hmm.
review of the chapter so that you can just
Brilliant.
think about like the things that you learned in this chapter, and you can move
Yeah.
forward with those things. But if you just went on straight to the next chapter without the review, you might miss out on something really important.
Yeah, that's so beautifully well put. I love that. It is basically the ability to integrate the information. It's not just, it's kind of like, I never feel like the universe is testing you, but I feel like when you come to a level of understanding about yourself, or a shadow gets illuminated, you then have this initiation period where then you get to hold that higher frequency, and then the same situation might come back your way, but you'll be holding that frequency differently when you go through it again. And so it's basically saying, hey, I've got this. I understand how to work with this frequency now. And it's like a beautiful review, but it's also like this beautiful level of like, here I am, here's what I understand now, and I'm going to stand strong in it because I can see that the same situation came back around, and now I have the opportunity to be different with it. And that's so powerful.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes we're not like really different. I mean, sometimes we are. Sometimes it's like a situation comes up again and you
Yeah,
are like a totally different person in that situation. Then
quantum leap.
something comes up and you're only 3% different. But that's
And
okay,
but
because
that's okay.
3% is still something, right?
Yeah. And there's no, I love that you pointed to that, because there's no pressure. There's no race to get there sooner. There's no, I need to be this better version of myself like now. There's nothing like that when you can just kind of allow yourself to fold into the process. there's always something that's shifting. There's always something magical that's happening in your every moment. And there's no need for you to get anywhere sooner because there's always going to be another level for you to hit. There's always going to be another level for you to get to. And you're never going to be done. Like Abraham Hicks says, you're never going to be done. You're never going to be wrong. You're just going. And I love it.
That's, and that's such really powerful information for, I know you work with a lot of like healers and light workers and people who are on like a giving journey, where they have
Mm-hmm.
achieved some level of, inner stability and wisdom that they're ready to share with others. And we can sometimes get caught, and I speak for myself here, we can get caught in this idea that we have to be perfect, or that we have to be healed, or
Yes.
have to be complete. And that's really a dangerous trap, because then we actually limit ourselves in terms of further growth, because it's actually still going on all the time. And I love
Mm-hmm.
how you really held me in that when I was succumbing to that, you know false narrative, you know
Mm-hmm.
um because it comes up. It does, because people are looking up to us, people are asking us for guidance, and we're leading, and there's this tremendous responsibility that comes with that. And to be able to arrive at that responsibility with that level of self-sensitivity and humility that says, I'm still growing, I'm still learning, I'm just slightly a little bit further on the path than someone else might be, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it really it's really so heart opening. It's really so therapeutic, and it helped me show up for my clients in a new level of presence, really.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, you already showed up so powerfully when I got a chance to work with you. And just the fact that there's something that's just so inspiring about this work. And I feel like you can speak to this as well, too, about the more that we, heal and grow and expand. If we're already in this place where we're wanting to share our hearts with these other people and really, help them get to that place as well too, it's so powerful when we continue down that process of growth and when we continue to, heal the parts of us that feel perfectionism or imposter syndrome or anything like that, the parts of us that kind of make us more human so that we can actually hold space even more powerfully for our people. And it's just such a, how did you describe it the other day when we were talking? It's like a spiral, right? It just like
Mhm.
radiates outwards when you are healing yourself and also working with other healers, because then they're also working with other people that they're touching as well too. And it's just like this beautiful ripple effect of everybody just holding space for one another. And it really brings that unity consciousness together
Mm.
of we're not separate. Another, I'm not further along than you, you're not further along than me. We're just in this process together and we're learning things that help us to see each other the way that we really are and to really bring that unity consciousness. And it just feels so good to be in that space with other healers and other light workers. And oh,
Yeah,
did I lose
it's
you?
so funny, because I feel like you just caught me in another little like way of thinking, that, the further along thing, in terms of this hierarchical thinking, it's so easy to slip back into that, because it's so much of what the foundation of our systems have been built on, right?
Yeah,
Is this
right.
hierarchical thinking. So it's so easy to slip back into that. Even though what you said, like, and even apparently I said the other day, is that it's much more circular than that.
Right,
But
right.
our brains like to think in these, either or, black and white, up and down. That's how our brains like to operate. And so
They
it's a
do.
whole practice of reshifting and reframing that.
And it takes you, I feel like that the way that it slips in, that conditioning, it kind of takes you away from your humanness, right? And
Mm.
that's part of it. Is we think we hit this point where, I mean, not all of us, but like usually you kind of hit this point when you start to awaken a little bit more, where you're like, oh, I understand things a little bit more now. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing things differently now. And then you make your human side wrong. You make your
Mm.
human side wrong for not being, 100%. Like I did not show up the way that I wanted to on social media this week and for my business. And so there's like this, this human part of me that's like, that's wrong. I shouldn't have done that. I should have been better. I know better than this. Why can't I be better? And then we shame ourselves and it's this whole thing. And instead, I just kind of shifted away from that and said, oh, well, that's just where my human's at. That's really good feedback. Here's what I'm actually discovering about that. Oh my gosh, there's a shadow that was buried in this. And now I can see that. And now there's this new powerful way that I get to show up because of this. And so there's so much perfection in our humanness that I think we
Mm.
miss out on when we're trying to be this divine, source higher self part of ourself all the time. And being, and it's so funny because it's kind of a dichotomy of actually being human
Mm,
is our higher self because it's experiencing our soul through our human vehicle. And so when we really allow
right.
ourselves to be that human part of ourselves and to be messy and be flawed and be imperfect, there's just this very beautiful, like, space that opens up for you to just experience life in a very different way to where you can be in your pain and it doesn't actually feel painful. Like you're just kind of in it and it's very different. I don't know if that makes
Yeah.
sense, but
It does.
yeah.
And I mean, because you work on these very like beautiful like layers, kind of like these layers of aura, right? And then where I work is like really super physical, but we kind of do similar work. It's a
Yeah.
transmutation work. And that's why I
Yeah.
think the alchemy when we worked together was so amazing, right? Because we're
Mm-hmm.
it's like the things that you were offering me, I just my system was ready to integrate that like instantly. And then the
Mm-hmm.
things that I offered you, your system was so ready to integrate that instantly. Because, and
Yes.
I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about this because there we hear this word embodiment and
Mm-hmm.
we practice these different embodiment techniques, maybe with breathing, but we don't know necessarily how to deal with the residual patterns in our bodies that are showing up and the muscular patterns that my work addresses is so fundamental to the way that we're moving through life, like literally moving our bodies through life. And so maybe you can say a little bit about like that disconnection between like embodiment and like the sensitivity to like our daily experience of our bodies, especially when we're having like muscular pain or something like this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would love to speak to that because your work is so, it's just absolutely so powerful and revolutionary because I feel like a lot of us, I mean, most of us have some sort of trauma from our younger years or something that's still lingering inside of our body, even if our childhood wasn't that bad or however you want to describe it. There's something that's still lingering in our body. And as you described to me, and you could probably say this a lot better, but our body kind of holds onto those patterns. And for me specifically, I know that because I was so scared to show up in this world, I
Mm.
constantly kind of like turtled in on myself and would just make myself almost as small as possible. And though it's not that exaggerated, it feels that way when I get scared or when something comes up for me, I kind of contract and I can feel my shoulders start to tense up a little bit. And if I'm not aware of it, then I just am in this like very slouched, very like kind of fold it in on myself kind of feeling. And though it's not that exaggerated, it
Yeah, these
it
things are
feels
subtle. They're on a subtle
they're
level.
so subtle, but it feels like this really extreme neck and back pain where all of a sudden it's like, oh, I've got that cranky neck. What's going on? And it's like we don't even assume that there's something going on within our body and within our mind that's connected. It just feels like, oh, this is what my body's doing, or it's because of that old injury. And we're so quick to blow things off when this is kind of like relationships. It's like your mirror. There's something that's going on that your body is mirroring to you. And if you pay attention to it, then you can adjust. And like we did this work together, this really powerful somatic healing where you kind of, and I would love to hear your way of talking about it, but we kind of went through and worked on all of these little parts of my body and in different parts. And I had this huge emotional release that happened because of it. And it was just almost like, it's almost like this really powerful way for the way embodiment comes in for me is almost like you are integrating all of this new light that you're picking up when you awaken and when you go through all of these processes. And it's actually allowing that integration to happen within your
Mm.
body. Because if your body doesn't feel safe, you're not actually going to allow yourself to integrate all of these new light codes and all of these new transmissions. There's going to be some part of you that wants to hit back down to that lower frequency that feels safer and better. And maybe sometimes that looks like you overeat one night or you continue to sleep in and you don't hold yourself to the practices that you want to be doing. Whatever it is, if you don't feel safe in your body, you're not going to be integrating these new light codes. So you have helped to kind of bring that safety back into my body so that then I can up level and then show up even more powerfully. And that's how it kind of
Yeah.
feels to me, the work you do.
Oh, thank you. Yes. And I was so impressed with how quickly your nervous system responded. And even with that big emotional release, like you seemed to just, you had all the tools, like you already had so many tools to show up for yourself. And I held that space for you and like you moved through it so well. Oh, Valerie's here. Hi, Valerie. So it's funny because you mentioned being able to integrate like the experiences and the information that we have. And I recently received a testimonial from a woman, and she didn't tell me this at the time, but she wrote it in her testimonial, which I thought was so interesting. She is former psychotherapist who has practiced plant medicine journeys for her personal growth, right? And also
Mhm.
facilitated others in those journeys, right? So she was on a plant medicine journey, I guess, at one point, and there was this realization that her body needed to let go in order to receive like the love of the
Mhm.
universe or the love that
Mhm.
exists. And there was this holding in her body. And she said that the experience was so painful and so scary to let go. Her body didn't want to let go. There was like all this shaking and tension and fear around letting go, even though that's what her body wanted to and needed to do. And then
Mhm.
when we had a session together, apparently she went back. You know, people go into trance when I'm working with them. They go into altered states and they're still following the instructions and responding to me, but sometimes they're snoring. She wasn't
Yeah.
snoring, but she was in an altered state for probably like 45 seconds or something, where she wasn't like fully responsive to the directions that I was giving her. And I was fine with this. It's like, okay, that happens. What she told me, and through this testimonial later on, was that she had gone back into that plant medicine experience. She had a flashback, and instead
Mhm.
of her body being unable to like let go without pain, she felt her body just totally like someone was singing her a lullaby. Like she felt like her body just totally receiving that universal love and that energy. And I was just blown away. Like she, didn't tell me at the time that that's what she went through, but this work allows you to receive, physically receive, right? We
Absolutely.
have this armor that we build up, and it happens energetically, but it is happening in our bodies. And so it's also happening physically. And the way that
Mhm.
it shows up physically in your muscular system is that we get chronically contracted patterns of musculature that are running all the time that we are
Mhm.
mostly unaware of until your neck hurts or your back hurts. But we don't realize that they're patterns, they're full body patterns actually, that are connected to life experiences that we have gone through, traumas and injuries and anything that you do, postures, the way that you
Mhm.
sit at your desk. It could be any number of things that we have these accumulating patterns, and they end up becoming like armor that does not allow us eventually to feel our lives or feel ourselves as fully as we would if we released some of those layers. And so that's what's so exciting about this technique that I teach, is that we systematically, and like you experienced with your neck and shoulders, we went through and we released. In your case, we worked a lot on releasing the red light pattern, which
Mhm.
is the stop and
That's
withdraw
my
and protect pattern that is
yeah.
a part of our nervous system's functioning. It's part of our human wisdom in being a creature that has a soft belly and a heart, and we got to protect that, right, when there's
Mhm.
danger.
Oh, so
But
well
the
said.
real yeah, it's not like a bad thing that we do that. It's actually part of our innate intelligence and wisdom of our
Mhm.
bodies to protect. The challenge becomes when we don't come out of that when the danger is gone, right? And
Right.
this relates to down regulation of your nervous system, etc., coming out of fight or flight. But you can do it on a physical muscular level. And when you do it on a physical muscular level, it releases a lot of other things too, like you experienced.
Mhm.
It releases stuck
Mhm.
emotions. It releases um, muscular pain and tension that's been going on. So
You
super
know, just
amazing
like
to
flashed through
say.
my mind as you were saying
Yeah.
that. This literally reminds me of like what a zebra does after it gets chased by a lion, right? Like the
What does
zebra
it
gets
do?
chased by the lion, and then if it survives, well, if it doesn't survive, it gets eaten. So there's nothing to really worry about there. And if it if it survives and the lion, stalks away, then the zebra shakes. It shakes its whole body
Mm.
because it needs to release all of that energy because it did do something that it needed to protect itself, kind of like how when we protect our hearts and that soft body. But like somatics is kind of like the equivalent to shaking in some way. Even though you're not
Right.
shaking while you're doing it, but
Yeah.
you are releasing that energy back out so that your body can re-soften again and feel safe in the world.
Yes, and that's actually really perfect because there are different, and I don't practice these ones, but there are different somatic techniques for shaking to release that. Like to that
Oh,
same animal wisdom. There are. I don't
yeah.
practice them, but I do know of them. And some
Hmm.
people find them very effective and some people don't, because
Hmm.
everybody's nervous system is different, right? But you brought something up that's really interesting, which is what I teach. And this way of moving in somatics is actually from like the animal nature, the animal wisdom. So you all are probably familiar with this, anyone watching. When a cat gets up after laying down for a while, what does it do?
Oh, the nice big stretch and the, oh yeah, like
Yes.
all the movements and the little like, yep.
Yes. So this is called pandiculation. And this is what I teach you. And it's not so much stretching. We call it stretching because we don't really know, or it's not really clear to us immediately what's happening neurophysiologically. But when the cat is pressing its belly down and it's lifting its back up, right? It's shortening the backside of its body with its butt in the air. Is the cat stretching its belly or is the cat contracting its back?
Oh my
The
God, I
cat
never
is
even thought of it like
contracting
that.
its back and then slowly releasing it. And then they usually do the other side. They contract their belly and they do that weird
Uh-huh.
arching and they contract their belly and then they slowly release it. And this resets the body tension so they can move easily and comfortably.
Yeah.
And we see cats and dogs do this all the time, and all kinds of animals do this in nature. It's actually an innate functioning of our nervous system. And
I never
as
thought of
human
it like that.
beings, we do it when we, you think about like, oh, waking up in the morning, you stretch your
Hmm.
arms, or people do it when they're laying in bed. They kind of like, press their legs out long and flex their feet, right?
Hmm.
So we do this, but what I teach is voluntary. It's doing this as a practice to utilize that tool to turn off
Hmm.
your tension and pain and to de-armor the muscular patterns in your body. And that's, so you hit exactly on why this is so effective. Um, and I would love to hear a little bit more about how you feel this has integrated with your work, the work you do with yourself, but also with other people, because you said a little bit about this before, but I just
Hmm.
love the way that you describe things in terms of taking the things that you do that are about embodiment and now having this new somatic awareness in your body.
Yeah, what actually came to mind as you were kind of describing a lot of this is when you said that armor, it's kind of like taking off that armor. The way that this feels like it is integrated and that it shows up for me through my work and through my everyday is, and I think I have spoken to this before, it is basically, I didn't realize how mean I was to my body before. I didn't realize how much I blamed my body for the way I felt, or man, if my neck could just get it together, like, ugh, what do I have to do for this? Or why is my back being sore today? Like, and we tend to just be so, it's kind of like that same thing of we don't want to take responsibility for what we're doing for it. We just want to blame something. And our body gets a lot of that blame, right? And our body is our best freaking friend. It is here for us. It is responding on a cellular level to every tiny little micro thought that we're having. And it's contracting or showing up in a way where it's trying to get your attention, where it's basically like, hey, you're thinking something that's actually not in alignment with you. Pay attention. Please pay attention because that doesn't feel good to you. And I'm here for you. I've got your back. And so it's gone from this, my body is not, in alignment with me. My body is hurting me. My body is slowing me down in some way. Ugh, my body's sick again. Whatever it is, it's gone from that to, oh, my body is getting my attention because it loves me. Oh, okay, let me pay attention to what's going on right now. Ooh, what am I thinking that's allowing this contraction to come up again? Because it's trying to let me know we don't feel safe. That's really good information. So it's just gone from this new, it's a new relationship, right? Relationship. It is a new relationship with my body that then I get to tune into, and instead of beating up on it, I look within and say, oh, okay, my body and me, we've got each other's back. What's happening here? What can I be doing to help, soothe it back down again? What am I thinking that doesn't feel safe? How can I take care of myself from that perspective? And so it's just this very new light of just embodying the kind of like an internal safety, that internal
Mm.
safety, and kind of building that home within where you feel safe in your body. And so when your body is acting up, that means that something is going on that needs to get your attention. And so you want to tune inwards, you want to go back into it with it a little bit again and pay attention to what it needs and maybe if your neck and back are starting to hurt, maybe you're stuck in front of your computer and you're in a terrible mindset about your work and thinking, I can't do this and what's wrong with me? And it's saying, hey, maybe we should get up and walk and stretch and contract a little bit in a new way. And it's so funny because it's always communicating with us. So it's kind of that new relationship with it that I feel like it's really brought out and highlighted.
Yeah, I mean, the phrase, it's so funny. The phrase, while you were talking, I thought this idea that we have of mind over matter is kind
Mm-hmm.
of like false, but we live in that with our bodies. Like you said, why is my
Yeah.
shoulder hurting? Oh, my back. I was planning on going on a run today and now my back is hurting. Thanks a lot, back. Versus the mind or the soul within the matter, that like
Yeah.
this is actually really good information about what I might be blind to in my
Mm-hmm.
mind, in my plans, in my agenda for what I think my life should be, versus the reality of what really is happening in my body and what my
Mm-hmm.
needs really are. I might think my needs are to like go on a run, but when I actually check in with my body, I need to take a nap. Because
I
I've
did that
been
earlier
running and
today.
running and running in terms of my energy and I haven't been resting, right? Because I have
Right.
all this ambition to like whatever it is, like run a marathon or lose weight or, get fit or whatever my goals are. Maybe just I think running's going to clear my mind, but a nap might clear my mind too.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's so funny that you said that. That was literally my morning where I had it all planned out. I was like, I'm going to go on a long run and I'm going to have a workout and do this and da 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 da. And then I woke up and my whole body was like, no, we're just going to take a nap. That feels better. And it did. And it felt great. And it was exactly what I needed was just to rest and be quiet and be still with my body for a little while. It's so funny how easy we can miss those cues because we have all of this, when we're living from our mind doesn't really care what it's saying. It just wants to lead. It just wants to tell us things and it wants us to listen. And because that's how we've trained it and it's efficient. It's not doing anything wrong. It's just we haven't broken that pattern because we think that our mind is what's in control of everything. And really, like exactly kind of what you were saying, our soul is actually trying to get our attention and lead. And our body is basically kind of like our number one response to what's actually happening and showing us what's happening at any given times with our feelings and our emotions and the pain and everything that's coming up from within it.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting to think, we get so caught up in our mental energy, but really we have all these other organs, including our skin and our hearts and our
Mm-hmm.
gut and our liver and our womb space, right? And all
Yeah.
these different parts of us that are actually working together in this really miraculous way to move us through life and to be digesting food and turning over cells and all of this
Mm-hmm.
magnificent like um communion that's going on internally. And yet we get caught up in just thinking like whatever's going on in our heads is the most important thing, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's fascinating. Just I love to like connect with other body workers and embodiment coaches and somatic people, because we all have a little different way of accessing these things. There's a lot of people I've seen recently talking about womb intelligence, and
Mm-hmm.
connecting with your womb, to learn things as a woman, as someone with a womb, right? And then there's other kinds of technologies where people are tapping into, their sexuality and their genitals and things like this. And then there's a lot of people who are very focused on their heart and what is my heart telling me? What is my oneness telling me? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's all happening interrelated all the time. And there isn't really one without the other. If we lose our heart, our brain's no good.
Right.
you know I suppose people lose a kidney and they're okay, but you know what I'm saying,
But
like.
it's so funny the way that you said that too, because that was one of the biggest things that I got from working with you actually, was I had an entire shift. I mean, I think you knew this. I think I was talking to you about this, but I had really bad breakouts after I got off of birth control and quite some time before then. But my skin was trying to communicate with me, and I was so caught up in my mind that I was like, all right, what's the millions of things that I could be doing because my body is not working with me. I don't understand my body. Something is going on, so that means I need to go deeper into my mind to try to figure out, well, what am I eating? What's going on with this? What can I be doing differently? I need to change my face wash. All of the things that our mind keeps us busy on. And I wasn't paying attention to my body because I was so quick to dismiss it. And when I came to you, I said, I just want to feel connected to my body because I'm not. I'm not connected. And that was the belief that I had in place. And literally the little amounts of work that we did together, so small before it clicked into place, where it was like, oh shit, I am connected to my body. That was a misbelief. That was something that was creating my experience. But literally, just that little shift of saying, I'm actually incredibly in tune with my body. My skin is trying to get my attention about so many different things that I'm not even listening to it. I'm so busy trying to fix it and get to the other side of it and get to this better place, kind of like what we were talking about at the beginning of this call, that I'm not even paying attention to the cues that it's trying to give me. And it was that little bit of a shift of working together that was like, I'm not connected to my body. I don't understand it, to, oh, I'm actually incredibly connected to my body and I'm not listening to it. Those are two very different energies.
Right. Oh, and what you said, so true, because we forget our bodies, but that's still happening all the time. And I
Yeah.
think this is actually not just a body thing, but I'll relate this to what you are describing about the work that you do with relationships, which is that we have these unconscious things that are going on that we're not aware of. We're not aware of the reason why my lower back is hurting.
Mm-hmm.
We're not aware of that. We're just experiencing the result of, right? We're just
Mm-hmm.
experiencing being triggered. We're not in connection all the time with the unconscious thing going on in me,
Mm-hmm.
that this is alerting me to something going on in me. And this process of making conscious what was unconscious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being able to look at it and be with it. And this is really the most important piece, I think, because I used to get really caught up in like being conscious all the time, which is
Yeah.
exhausting. You do that work when it takes you what? Takes you 45 minutes, takes you 15 minutes, takes you an hour. If you're working with a practitioner like you or me, you have a set amount of time where you're working on that. And then you kind of give it back to your subconscious. You give it back to the unconsciousness and you allow it to integrate. And you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be like hyper aware of what you're doing with your back. You don't have to be hyper aware of like your triggers all the time, because you did that work and then you gave it back to your nervous system to process and to
Yeah.
integrate. And so,
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. That's so powerful because what I hear all the time when I coach with people is, I'm trying to do this thing. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do it. And it's like, well, maybe don't try to do it. You either doing it or you're not. And it's not this hard thing that you have to make this really complex matter over. It's kind of like what you said, of you set the time aside, you do the work, or deep dive into it, whatever you want to call it, and then you just kind of let it integrate.
Mm,
You let yourself go back into your world, and you kind of notice when it comes up and notice when it doesn't, and you're just kind of with it a little bit more, but you're trusting that your body knows what it's doing. You're trusting that, your subconscious knows what it's doing, that your whole body is responding to this concept. You don't have to try. And I feel like that trying always implies that you feel like something is wrong with you, that you feel like
mm,
something is broken, that you need to be fixed, that you need to move into this other stage of, well, now I'm this better human because I tried and I got there. And it's more about this like allowing, this acceptance, kind of like how your body demonstrates to you, like what you're saying. It naturally knows how to integrate all of these little things. And that's kind of like what happens when you're letting in new light. Your body knows what to do. Your whole system knows what to do with it. You've just got to get out of the way and let it happen. And it's so different than that trying energy, right?
Oh yeah, the trying can get in the way of the experience of doing,
Mm-hmm.
or not doing, or being present. You're not present when you're trying. You're fixated on a future, on a goal
Yes.
that's somewhere outside of right now, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you know, I tell like my, clients, like I lay down on my floor and I do my somatic practice in about 10 or 15 minutes. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a way for me to just down regulate my nervous system, get connected to my body, and release the muscular patterns that have been accumulating, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
from, yesterday, or the hike I went on, or something I did with my body, or just stress that I can feel building, right? So it takes me about 10 or 15 minutes to do that. And then I just get up and go about my day. If I,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I lay down and I have some pain or tension somewhere, and I get up and the pain or tension isn't gone completely. It's like, you know, 40 to 50% less, which is great, because
Mm-hmm.
that's, I got that without taking a painkiller. That's great.
Right.
And
Right.
then if I focus on the pain and that it's still there and that I'm upset about it and I want it to go away, I often will notice that my pain starts to increase. And if
Yes.
in because I'm stressing out about it, right? But if I just get up and I go, oh, yep, there's that little feeling in my butt cheek that was annoying me earlier, but now it's like kind of manageable. It's okay. Like I'll just move
Mhm.
around and go about my day. And if I need to lay down and do another practice later, I'll do that. If I
Mhm.
relax about it and just like notice it and let it be there and then keep going, and move about, it goes
Mhm.
away sometimes, or the pain goes down even further, or I wake up the next morning and I forget that it was even there.
Yes. Oh, God, that's so literally well said because it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. I think it's from Neil Donald Walsh, but it's basically what you resist persists and what you look at disappears. So, I mean, it's kind of the law of attraction and action, right? If you're sitting here focusing on, you don't want that pain to be there anymore and you want it to feel better and something is wrong with it and you need to get to the other side. Again, it doesn't matter that you're saying, I don't want these things. Your attention is still so focused on them that your energy flows in that direction. And that's all you can see. That's what comes into that's what stays in your energetic field. But if you're like, oh, I'm noticing that this is feeling a little bit better. Okay, well, that's really nice. I'm just going to go about my day and do all of that. You're looking at it and you're allowing it to be what it is. And now your attention is not focused on what you don't want. It's focusing on what you do want. So then it's like, oh, I do feel a little bit better. Oh, that's cool. Oh, even just 1%, that's exciting. So it's like this complete like mind game that you're playing a little bit where you're just like you're getting to know your mind a little bit more through your body, which is I feel like a big part of what we need to be doing as a society is connecting the two. It's not just mental health and it's not just physical health. It is a whole body system that's happening.
Totally. And this brings us back to kind of the thing we started with, which was energy leaks. It's such an energy
Mm-hmm.
leak to be frustrated and, overly concerned about the 30% of the pain that's left, right, in
Mm-hmm.
my butt cheek or whatever, wherever it is, right? And like fixating on that and getting frustrated. It's zapping my energy. It's like taking me away from the present moment. And it's that same way that you talk about, like with the triggers and the upsets that show up in our relationship. It's really draining to stay angry at somebody. It's really draining
Mm-hmm.
to like stay upset about something. And if
Mm-hmm.
we keep focusing on the problem and it being outside of us, then we're going to continue to drain ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we can't fix it from that perspective. We can't do
Mm.
anything about it from that perspective. It's more of a, oh, this is what I'm noticing. Now what do I need from myself to move forward with it? And it's kind of like on that same note too, I feel like the work that you do, what I've actually understood a little bit more about it is actually how to, let me see if I can figure out how to say this. It's actually allowed me to release emotions a little bit
Mm.
better and a little
Mm.
bit more, oh God, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit more seamlessly
Efficiently.
because efficiently, thank you. I was trying to look for the word. Because the way that I've experienced emotions and what I understand about them is that we want to give them the space that they need and that they deserve, but not necessarily the space that they would take up if they could. So
Mm.
when you are used to holding on to emotions in your body, it becomes dense energy because you're not releasing them. And that dense energy then gets stuck in places in your body. And that's where you start to have all of these little bits of pains because you're not releasing the emotions efficiently. And so when you can honor the emotion and then allow it to move through your body and release and do all the things that you need to be doing, not through your mind, but through your body and checking in with yourself, like, oh, I need to crack my neck a little bit, tuning back into emotions and
Efficiently
that
release
allows
those emotions, and that allows
catching up.
catching up.
Oh,
Oh,
Hear
I
me?
can't hear you anymore.
Okay. Sorry. I think
There
my
we go.
husband turned on my car and my phone was connected to my car. So
Oh,
can you say that last bit about the dense energy and getting trapped in your body?
yeah, so basically what this work, what somatic work has actually helped me to really embody, it's going right back into embodiment a little bit more, right? Because these are things that I've known, but we want to give the space to the emotions that they deserve, but not necessarily the space that they would take up if they could. Because
Mm.
if they can, they'll build some momentum and they will get stuck in your body, they'll become that dense energy. And if you're not releasing them, efficiently and quite often, then you get this stuck energy in your body and it hurts. That's when your body starts hurting. And if you're so quick to brush off your body and say, I don't know why your neck hurts right now. Like, you need to get it together, body. Like, come on, we have to go for a run. We have to do these things. you're missing out that your body is actually trying to process energy efficiently for you.
Right.
And so it's
Yeah.
this, yeah, it's this very beautiful, this work, this somatic healing is actually kind of brought that to the focus of, oh, if my body's hurting, I'm actually holding on to something that I don't need to be holding on to anymore. How can I let that go a little bit more? So it's like another avenue to really bring it like a deeper level into our consciousness. It's so
Right, a
cool.
deeper level of release from the things
Mm-hmm.
that are getting stuck in our energy
Yeah.
field too. I mean, I've had clients who are energy workers, and I would describe you as one here too, but what they've described is that it makes their energy work more efficient to not have their
Mm-hmm.
muscular tension in the way of releasing the feelings that are
Mm-hmm.
showing up there. So if you can imagine like the different emotions that you were describing, and you have experienced, you know, different intense things throughout your life, maybe embarrassment in, you know, adolescence, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
shame at some point in your childhood, or maybe jealousy as a young adult, right? And all these different emotions actually have a muscular contractive pattern that comes
Mm-hmm.
along with them. And what happens to most of us is that these get layered and layered and layered on top of us, right? And then we get triggered, and like all the patterns are suddenly pulling on each other, and they're
Mm-hmm.
creating this pressure and this tension in our bodies. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you start to somatically release the muscular structure as you've experienced, and take off those past those residues of those past experiences, those past emotions, then when an emotion shows up, a trigger like shame or fear or jealousy, right, shows
Mm-hmm.
up, instead of having like your whole body, right, it's like maybe there's a little bit of that, maybe there's like just a tightening, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the same level of discomfort and pain and contraction that there would be otherwise if you hadn't been releasing some of these muscular contractions. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
I love that because that makes so much sense because it's I think that the way I believe it, I think we are supposed to have a little bit of a body reaction when when those emotions come up because
For
that
sure.
lets us know that it doesn't feel good and it's not in alignment with us. It's giving us feedback so that we can say, "Oh, I see that now. What do I want to do about this? Like how can I shift this?" But if we haven't done this work, if we haven't done the somatic work and we don't understand that when we experience jealousy or something that we experienced when we were younger that feels like that, oh God, here it is again, we're not going to want to look at it. We're not going to
Oh,
want
it's
to
going to
do
be too
anything about it.
painful.
It's going to be too painful. We're going to want to push away from it. We're going to want to resist it and say, that person shouldn't be causing that in me. If it's a partner that's, got like this came up with Jeremy and I actually really early on in his relationship because he has so many beautiful female friends. And I had a lot of past experience with insecurity and trust being broken and jealousy and things like that. So when it came up in our relationship, you better believe, because I hadn't done the work around it, that I was like, I don't think you should have all these friends. I don't think that's the way that that works, right? I don't think you should. It's not normal and you should be valuing me. And I was like, oh, yeah, none of that feels good. Okay, we've got to do something about that. But if you're not willing to look at those things because they're too painful, it's so easy to go through life being a victim because you don't know how to interact with your body, because you don't know how to release these things, because you don't know how to grow and expand. You feel victimized. And then that
Right.
keeps you stuck in a victim mentality. And if you're not willing to, if you don't do this somatic healing, if you don't allow these emotions to move through you and be released, when they come up again, it's going to feel like that gut punch where you're like, I can't do this. I'm not
Yeah, it's
strong
going to
enough for it.
feel
I can't
like you
be
got
with
hit by a
this.
truck. And
Mm-hmm.
how are you supposed to do anything like smart or constructive when you're lying in the road covered in blood, right? Like,
You can't, yeah. And there's no fault to your own at that point. It's just there's something here that needs to shift and got to figure it out a little bit differently.
yeah, and there's so many tools, and that's something that I like to discuss too with clients, because addressing these things on multiple levels is part of our healing process. And I believe
Mm-hmm.
that the somatic work is so fundamental because it's your
Mm-hmm.
body, and it's your muscles, and you're using them all the time,
Yeah,
right? But
absolutely.
there are some people who aren't ready to go there yet because they still have other like places that they need to release first. Like if you've never
Mm-hmm.
done any kind of talk therapy, or you've never done any kind of like writing or processing these things verbally, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that's the first place for people to start, because processing it somatically, there's just so much narrative that comes up. There's so much story. There's so
Mm-hmm.
much mental energy that comes up that has not yet been expressed, right? And so it
Right.
can feel like too much, because then now you're having this overflow mentally. But even I have some clients who have that happen, even if they have done some kind of personal work before, right, or journaling or self-reflection. And that's
Mm-hmm.
actually a really great time to start journaling or to start expressing yourself more in your personal relationships, and telling the stories that are coming up, the stories that were trapped in your body,
Right.
right? um,
Right.
and you know then when you come in with what you do with this energetic, and this, I would say, like, it's an energetic alchemy, like you're helping people
Love that.
transmute their energy, and move it in this really dynamic way. Then anybody who comes to you who's already done some kind of somatic work, like myself, is just going to streamline that. Like they're just going to, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to break them through to like the next, I would say, level, but we're not thinking in levels. It's going to break them through to the next spiral
Mm-hmm. You know
of
what?
their experience.
Yeah, and you know what's so cool about what you just said? Because when we were working together and, working in sessions together, because you've done this somatic healing work, and I can tell how safe you feel within your body, how much you understand it, how much you work with it. When you would hit, I mean, we hit on some pretty deep points in coaching. I won't share what they are, of course, but we hit on some pretty deep points that you would cycle through a whole series of emotions of like deep grief and pain and trauma and sadness and anger and irritation. And you cycled through all of those emotions so beautifully. You held the space for them. We would give the space for you to just kind of be with it for a second. And then you moved through it. You seamlessly flowed with life. And I think that's what being in flow is. We think that being in flow is being this happy, off the walls, sky dance in person all the time who's like, low vibes, no thank you, I'm not here for that. And we forget that there's nothing that's really low vibe about feeling these painful emotions. Like when you can be with them and move through them, that's being in the flow, because you're acknowledging your human experience and you're bringing your divinity into it.
Right.
And you
Oh,
embodied that so beautifully during our sessions together, because you've done this work with your body and you understand how it moves.
yeah. And I feel like it's just places in my, mind or my psychology that I used to get really stuck. I don't feel the same kind of stuckness that I once felt,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not stuck in my body. I'm like, body is
Mm-hmm.
free to move. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that I hope for everybody, really, that is ready to go there, that is ready to do it. Because to be free to move in your body in even just everyday tasks, to bend over and get something off the floor, or to
Mm-hmm.
stand up and walk from the front of the room to the back of the room. We take these things for granted until we can't do them easily, right?
Yeah,
And most
absolutely.
people are destined for immobility later in life, right? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what we expect. We expect, like, oh, you're 40, you're
Mm-hmm.
50, you have lower back pain. That's kind of normal. You're getting old, right? There's
Yeah.
this kind of cultural expectation that by the time you're in your 70s, you've probably had joint replacement surgery. And,
Mm-hmm.
you can't go on really, exciting hikes anymore. If you're still
Mm-hmm.
active in an older age, people are really impressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this accumulation, like I've spoken of before, of these muscular patterns and these stuck experiences in our bodies, they take away our freedom
Yeah.
if we don't
Isn't
do
it
something.
so? It's so funny how you mentioned that as well too, about the conditioning, right? Like we're just
Mm.
conditioned to believe that when we hit even our 30s, oh, we're going downhill. My goodness, like you got back pain, that's welcome to your 30s. Like even 30s, right? Like
Yeah.
that is normalized. Like, well, I've hit my mid 30s and I've got the neck and back pain, so I'm right on track, can't handle drinking and binging anymore. And like it's so funny how like there's all these cultural, but we have that same conditioning with our minds too, right?
Mhm.
Like it's the same thing, but in our minds of, believing that we have to hustle or grind to make our businesses work, or, all of these beliefs that come from our cultural norms. Like, that's the deconditioning that we're breaking. We're breaking the conditioning that we have to, lead with our minds, and that we have to do what everyone else is doing to get ahead in life, that we have to, the conditioning with our bodies, that our bodies are meant to break down at a certain point. We are breaking those conditionings wide open so that we can make our own new narrative about them. And it's so big, it's so powerful. I love that the world is coming to these conclusions, that we are starting to open up and waken up around these things, because they're not normal.
Yeah, I mean, I love this. I make these distinctions all the time because like we use this word normal, and I think what we actually mean is natural.
Yeah,
But even
yeah.
even even so, I feel like it is natural. Like it is natural to get tight as you get old. That's a natural
Mm-hmm.
process that's going on, and it is normal, but it's not. And I'm trying to I'm searching for like the right word, because it's not, I guess you could say, once you find out certain things about what you can do, like somatic work or even the different, mindset work, it's not necessary, it's not determinant, right, of our
Mm,
future. So like
yeah,
we can always change it. It's plastic. I'm trying to find
right.
again the right words, because it is
Yeah.
normal and it is natural to get tight, but it's not what we really like want ultimately. We want to
Yeah,
be
we were.
free, have free agency in our bodies. We want
Well,
to.
we're limitless. We know that we are.
Yeah.
And when we create all of these like normalcies, it limits us, right? And then we just assume, and it kind of falls back into that victim mentality of, this is just what happens. This is what happens in life, and well, this is where I'm at now. I guess this is what I can do. And it's like, it almost like caps us. It just like caps our creativity and our essence and like who we are. And so I think you're right. I think that's totally natural to get a little bit tight as we get older, or, these things for us to happen as we're aging, but that doesn't limit us. It's revealing something to us of like, oh, maybe now I need to be stretching a little bit more. Maybe I need to be doing something a little bit differently. It's giving us guidance and feedback. And I kind of feel like limitless is the best way to describe that. We're not limited. And that's what this
Mhm.
deep conditioning has us believe, is that we're limited in some way, especially
Right.
the older we get.
Yes. And there's there's such a day in, day out impact. And as
Mhm.
you were saying earlier, like this moment to moment, like possibility for learning something new, right, about
Mhm.
yourself and about how you're interacting with your environment. And it's always happening real time, it's always happening now. But we
Mhm.
get so caught up in the past and the future that we forget about being here in our body right now and
Yeah.
all of the information that's available to us now. And with those muscular patterns that I've been talking about that accumulate in our structure, it's like you're carrying baggage around. You're carrying layers of the past around with you. And it's
Mhm.
interacting with your mental and emotional states and your energetic
Mhm.
states. And it has you, when you get upset with somebody, having like all of this tension suddenly in your body of all these experiences where somebody did you wrong or somebody hurt you,
Mhm.
right? And then it has you reacting in some way, right, to try to negotiate with that, to try to like ease that, right? And that sometimes looks like these misguided attempts to control other people.
Right.
Which is
It's
what you're really getting at in the work that you do with people, which is so powerful, because the only person we can really control is ourselves,
mhm.
right? And that's
Yeah.
actually where we want the control to be. We don't, when it comes down to it, like, you don't want to give your partner a script of what to say to you to make you feel better, right? You want that to naturally arise from their way of being.
Yeah,
And
because
yet you cannot
you're
control
radiating
that,
it.
you know?
Yeah,
You can only control what comes out of your mouth.
right. It's the word that came to mind as you were describing all of that is fragmentation. Because when you
Mm.
are stuck in the past, when you're stuck in the future versions of you, you're fragmented out. And it's those power leaks again, right? It's another way of saying that. Like, you're having power leaks. So that means you're not focused on your present moment. And your present moment is actually holding everything, every single resource that you need
Mm.
to heal and to grow and expand. But if you're fragmented out and you don't want to be in your body and all of these things, and it's keeping you from being present with yourself fully, you're going to have reactions like that, like where your partner does something and all of a sudden you blow up on them and you're like, I should have known better than that. Why couldn't I be with that motion? Why couldn't I have ground down more? And then you're in a shame spiral at that point because now you're thinking about the past again of what you did and the future of like how scary it is that you can't, be in your power. And it's a cycle and you got to break up that cycle. And part of that is coming back to your body, coming back to you, and seeing what's going on in your present moment at any given time. Because like you said, that's where your power is. That's where your control is all the time.
Oh my gosh, Krysta, you are such a light, and I absolutely love talking to you. Like, we've had these conversations. I'm so glad now that we're sharing our conversations, because we'll get on the phone and we'll be talking, and like both of us will be like, oh, like sparkles, and now like, we get to actually bring other people in on this conversation, which I'm so excited about. I mean, it's eventually going to be one of my podcast episodes, and I'm sure that you'll be a regular contributor, because I'm launching this podcast starting in January. I'm trying to get it all together. So, and I have recorded multiple episodes now, so that there can be like a trickle out week by week starting in January. But the podcast, I'm going to tell you the name I finally landed on. It's Free Your Soma podcast. And the little tagline is going to be stories of somatic awakening and how to live from the inside out.
Oh my gosh, literal chills. Literal chills. That is so powerful. And this is going to be in January.
I'm launching in January. I'm going to put it out there. So yeah, you'll be seeing stuff about that. But yeah, I feel like these conversations can be really illuminating to people who are already on this path, or maybe they haven't even like been exposed to some of this stuff, and now they get to have this little moment to make, right?
Oh, you're cutting out. Can you say that last part one more time? Because you cut it out again.
I was saying that even if someone is already on this path, this is a really great way for them to interact with new material and make little connections. And then even people who might not have experienced some of the things that we're talking about, it could turn on a light for them somewhere in their personal experience of their body or their history, right? So I really want to make this podcast, accessible for all those who are interested in soma, in somatic work, in their living experience of their bodies, wherever they might be on that journey. And I've really appreciated today how simple you break things down and you make things really clear. And it just shows me how much more clear you're getting about what you offer to people. And so people can find you, the people who are ready to work with you.
This has been such a huge gift. I feel the exact same way about our conversations. They completely light me up. And I feel like the way that we speak about the universe just brings in so much love and certainty to me. And so I'm so incredibly grateful and appreciated that you set up this space for us to go live together and to talk about the things that light us up, because they're so big in this world. And I cannot wait for your podcast. I think that's going to be absolutely incredible and such a gift to this world. And it's absolutely incredible. Oh, magical. I love that.
Yes. Some of my lovely people are here. Christiana is here, and I know her from Norway, so from a long time ago. Hi, Christiana. Oh. She's quite the magical being herself. And then Kylie had joined us here, and Kylie just enrolled in the Radiance program. So I'm celebrating her massively, like today and to yesterday and today. And she's started on this somatic awakening journey herself, and it's been so amazing to work with her, and then also just connect her to other people who are doing this same kind of work to build a community. Because as this stuff comes up, and you probably know too, like as you do this work and these things come up, you're like, oh my God, I want to talk to somebody about this, but who do I talk to? Like, not everybody is going on this same inward journey in this very particular way, and awakening to these like ways that their life has shown up in their body. And so that's what's so important about developing a community of people who can talk to each other and get it and like receive, and not just be like, what do you mean emotions get stuck in your body? I don't know what you're talking about. You're mad right now or something?
I literally had somebody that I jumped onto the phone with the other day, and just because you're growing and awakening doesn't mean that you're losing all of your relationships. You might lose some people, absolutely, because you're changing frequencies and attracting new people, but even the people that you love, you might not, kind of like how you said, you might not be able to talk to them about it on this level. And I had somebody that I was on the phone with the other day who I met at Burning Man, and she was just saying, wow, this is so powerful. Like, I don't think I've ever had somebody to actually talk about what I'm experiencing in this. I just figured this was a trauma response and that I'm basically losing my mind. And it was just like, oh, no, you're not losing your mind at all. If anything, well, you might be losing your mind, but that's a good thing. Like, that's an exaggeration, but it is, you're totally right. It's the community aspect of not feeling alone when you're finding all these discoveries about yourself and you feel like, oh my God, I don't understand them. Is this my intuition? Is this my old trauma response? I can't quite differentiate between it yet because it feels so big. When you have these people, they help to kind of like concrete these ideas and say, oh, that makes sense. You're experiencing this too. Oh, wow,
Right.
that's great. That means I'm not alone in this. And that's all we're really looking for, is to support and love and hold each other and be on this journey together.
Thank you. Beautifully said. That's a great point to land on here, or to finish on here today, Krysta, with that community aspect. And I'm so grateful to call you part of my inner circle as I begin the next layer of my sharing in the world.
I love that. Yeah, I'm so, so happy that you're in my inner circle as well, too. This has been phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Yeah, beautiful. Anybody who's curious about looking at more of Krysta's work, she has her Instagram page. And if you want to set up a call with her about doing some work together, I highly recommend it. She's totally amazing, mind-blowing, open up new avenues of experience and lots of juicy power for you in your body, in your mind, and in your relationships to the world. So check her
Mhm.
out for sure. And thank you, all of you who joined today and listened to some of this talk. And you'll be getting more content like this from me very soon.
Ah, love that. Love all of you. Thank you so much for joining today. And also, just to insert my little piece, if you are a soul-based leader, have a business, anything along those lines, you're working with other people, oh my gosh, please do somatic healing with Amy. It is unreal how much it will just level you up a little bit more. It's insane how much it brings you into your body and brings you into the space where you can hold so much more space for other people. It's absolutely insane.
Thank you, Krysta. We'll talk again really soon. Everybody have just the most amazing weekend as we go into 10/22/22 tomorrow. Very magical, special day
Ooh, I
tomorrow.
didn't even know what date it
Yeah.
was. That's
Yeah. So you can
exciting.
already probably feel all that juicy energy flowing in, and everybody just marinate.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you soon.
Bye.